What's cracking, everybody? Good morning. Welcome back to the channel. New video. Is that too bright? Let me see. Let me turn that down a little bit. New video. Now, so I did the Tehachapi video the other day, and some of you guys said, yeah, you know what? We want some more Tehachapi stories. So, at first, I was going to do another Malo story. But I was like, I don't know if I tell the story, there's really not a message behind it other than stupidity, right? But so instead, I'm gonna do another one. Again, I'm gonna you guys use the guy's name. I'm not gonna use his neighborhood. This story, it may be a little longer. I'm not sure yet because the way I have to tell it, it's gonna kind of go. I'm gonna have to go in a little circle and come on back. So here we go. As I had told you guys when I got to Tehachapi, me and my Sally, or my Sally and I, we really tried to, while we are in orientation, dress sloppy, have our appearance a little more sloppy than normal, because we were really trying to seem unaggressive. We wanted to get out to the yard, and we wanted to take care of some business out there. And us being as professional as we usually would have stood out. However, the guys on the yard, they knew who came on the bus. They knew who was playing for keeps and who wasn't. And like I said in the other video, when we went to committee, the day of committee, they snatched my Sally and I. Now, my Sally was snatched up for validation purposes, meaning they were going to try to validate him. The CDC, the state, was going to try to validate him as a member or an associate of one of the legendary four, right? One of the big four, one of the legendary organizations. Myself, a kite was dropped on me that I was going, if I went out to 4A, that I was going to stab somebody. And somebody specifically said that I was their enemy. And so that's why they put me in that SAG, and I was pending transfer to 4B. Okay. And so with my Sally being snatched up for validation, that's a serious thing in the CDC. Well, it was before. Now now who knows what, because everybody's out. But back then it was very serious to get validated. It was a process where the state of California had to validate you, use certain points. There's 3 points of validation, but they usually want to wait until they can hit you with 5 or more, so that way it sticks. But anyways, with my Sally being snatched up for validation, that puts heat on our cell, and you will be on the same yard group as your Sally because of the seriousness of the things against him, you being in the cell with him. Okay, so in Tehachapi at the time, they had the CC yard, which means control compatible, and then you had the reintegrated mixed yard. Now, at that time, the CC yard was only raza from Southern California. A few months later, the administration trying to play games threw some skinheads. They snatched up like 6 skinheads and threw them on the yard with us. I guess they wanted us to get off on the skins, but there was no beef there. We just, maybe that's another story. But so that was what the CC yard was. The reintegrated mixed yard was the dudes that had been out there on the yard too long. Basically, it was the trash yard, right? And you had the blacks were on that yard. It was everybody except Southerners, raza from Southern California, who were still in the game, right? So they run yard. The first day they run yard. They pull my Sally out, and I go to cuff up. They're like, "No, you're not assigned to this yard." And we have more than one CC yard. There was two CC yards, I think, two control compatible yards, I believe, at the time, right? And so I was like, all right, I'm on the other one. That's weird. So my Sally comes back in from yard. Then they run another yard. Boom. Then the next yard which is a reintegrated mixed yard, they come and cuff me up, right? So obviously now this is a setup, okay? So I looked at my Sally and we are like, okay, they're really doing this. So, I cuff up, I go out, I strip out, I cuff up, I go out, right? Now, in Tehachapi, there's a little caged area, right, where they uncuff you. And there's a yard door here on your left and a yard door directly in front of you. The one to your left, this is on 4A, is a really big yard. Then the one in front of you is smaller, right? Both concrete yards, add sag yards. I look to the left and I see a vato that I knew from New Folsom that had gotten a wreck, right? I looked in the other yard, I didn't see nobody. But knowing the dude in the yard to my left, I told the Hura, hey man, open this door. And his dumbass just happened to be like, there's like 3 steps to go down. He was right there. And I was thinking, what an idiot to stand where he's standing, because if they open this door, I'm going to kick him right in his fucking face. And then it's going to, we're going to do what we do. And the Hura's telling me, no, I think that's A. I think that's yard A and then yard B, or yard 1 and yard 2, whatever. And he was like, no, you're not assigned to that yard. And I was like, nah, that's the yard I always go to. I'm lying. And he's like, this is your first yard. And I was like, nah, I already been there. So he was like, you're not going to that yard. Quit asking. So the yard in front of me, that yard door opens. So first thing I do is I take it all the way to the back of the yard, right? Take my shirt off, tuck it into my pants in the back, and I'm waiting. And the first cell to come out was 2 blacks. And when they come out, because they don't know yet, they just know it's a new dude. So they kind of like break into 2 and go to the sides, right? And I go, hey, Owens, are there any Mexicans assigned to this yard? And one looks at me and you could tell he knew. And he's like, yeah. And I said, who are they? And he said, Bones and Oso. And I said, you know where they're from? He goes, no. I said, okay. So I'm waiting in the back. More blacks are coming out, and I'm thinking, damn, these would have set me up. But they stayed out of it, right? And then here comes the 2, Bones and Oso. So they come out, and they're both big boys, right? The thing is I know Bones. So when I see them, they both looked at me, and they looked at each other like, we got one. Remember, it was on in there. So I was like, what's up, Bones? And he looks and he's like, oh, what's up? And he tells his Sally, hey, wait a minute. Go to the corner, right? So let me take a minute to tell you about Bones. So a while back, it's probably been a year or more ago, I told a story. And this had to do with raza using the N-word, right? I've done different videos on that. Well, in my time in prison, I only remember 2 vatos using that word. And it was when I first got to New Folsom. Me being a YA baby, YA was different. You could just take off on somebody if you didn't like something, where the CDC has the hands-off policy, right? So I'm standing there, and this vato walked up. And I remember he had a little mesh bag, and that's when we had the cameras back then, before they took them and then brought them back. And he had a little mesh bag, and he had his ID in there, and he had like 10 or more, maybe even more photo ducats. Photo ducats, I think back then, were $2 a pop, right? And so he was flossing his photo ducats, I don't know. And so somebody was like, hey, Bones, what's up? I see with all that money in that bag. And he was like, yeah, and you know what's up, And I looked at him. And I looked at the vatos that I was with, and like nobody had shock on their face. And I immediately was like, I'm standing with the wrong crowd. And I walked off. So Bones and his road dog was from Compton. They used to use that word. And I stayed away from them because to me, that just, you didn't see that, right? Well, one day I happened to be sitting on a table and there was an OG on the yard. He's from Dakota. Yes, Dakota up north, but this dude's been doing time since the 70s, before there was a north and south, right? And he's sitting there, and this dude is very, very well known. Everybody always consider him a grouch. Big ass, weird, big ass dude. Oh, he's a grouch. Me being how I am, I used to always roast him and clown with him, and he liked me. Even though he was a grouchy dude, I used to make him laugh, so he liked me, right? So I was sitting there, and those of you that remember the story, you know what happened. I'm sitting next to him, and there goes Bones and his road dog, and they're walking by in front of us. And the vato from Dakota, he's looking, and he, without thinking, he goes, "The motherfuckers are through." And then he realized he said it out loud, and he looked at me, and I was like, "All right, Holmes, I'll holler at you." I bounced off, right? Within 6 months, Bones and his road dog used to they used to slam carga. They used to get high. They used to fuck with heroin. The dude from Dakota used to get the bag. So within 6 months, these two dummies, they want to get in some dope off of them, and he had them both hit because they didn't pay. But really, they did. But that was the game, you know. He made up his mind. They played into his hand, and when they did, he got them, right? So now, going back to Tehachapi, I'd say, when I'm like, "What's up, Bones?" He's like, "Oh, hey," told the cellies, tell her, step off to the side, go to the corner. So I walk over to him. He's no good. We are going to have to get into it, right? So I tell him, I go, hey, what's cracking? And he looks at me and goes, "You're not supposed to be here, huh?" I said, "Nope." And he goes, "Hey, I'm going to let you know right now that me and my Sally had already discussed it, Holmes. And if any of you guys ever came out onto the sharp, we're going to smash you." I said, "Well, then I guess I'm going to get smashed today." And he's like, "Nah, man, but I know you. You're this." He goes, "You know, if you get at the hood," I was a big-ass hood, not big-ass white cop named Tiny, right? And he goes, "Hey, if you just tell Tiny this thing at the yard, you're supposed to be." I said, "Hold up, Holmes. That's not happening, eh? You know and I know I'm not leaving this yard like that." I said, "Me and you are going to get down, Holmes." I said, "But I am going to talk to you first." So he's like, "What's up?" And I said, "Listen, the first thing I'm going to say is that I know you got done dirty." And when I said that, this vato went, he goes, "Thank God somebody actually knows." I said, "No, I know." I said, "But you laid down. Why didn't you fight? Why didn't you do what you had to do and get that fixed? You didn't get it fixed, and then you stayed here." And he's like, "Man, I don't want to keep getting hit and this and this and that." And I was like, "Fool, you laid down. What happened to you was fucked up, but you chose to lay down. That's not cool." So we're having a conversation, and I told him, "Look, Holmes, me and you are going to get down, eh?" And he's like, "Man, he's a big boy." His Sally was a big boy. His Sally had hate. He had hate in his eyes looking at me the whole time. And so he was like, "So you sure that's how you want it?" I said, "That's how it's going to go down." And I told him, the only reason why I didn't get off on you immediately is because I wanted to let you know. And this is a dude older than me by at least 6 years. Been in the CDC. And I just told him, like, I wanted you to know, like, I know what really happened, eh? That, you know, you got done dirty, but you laid down. So he was like, "Hold on, eh?" So he calls his Sally over. And the whole time his Sally's walking towards us, he's mad dogging me. And I'm mad dogging him. And his Sally was like, what's up? And he tells his Sally, hey, look, me and this Vato, we're going to get down. And his Sally was like, hey, nah, fuck that. That's not what our agreement was. He's like, no. He goes, hey, I know this dude, man. He's feed, man. You know, he knows what happened to my case, this and this and that. And his Sally was like, I don't give a fuck about that. And Bones told him, go in the corner and don't move from there. And his Sally was like, so are you sure? And he said, yeah. And his Sally walked off to the corner. Once he's in that corner, I got off. Vato was big, right? Fortunately for him, and like I always tell you guys, I believe everything happens for a reason. I didn't have a strap. I didn't have a chance to grab the razor because the Judas came up out of nowhere. At the time also, because the Vatos on the main line, well, I want to say 4A, because most of the Vatos there were dirty and knew they were going to get whacked. They had been out there too long. That's the only I'd say I've ever been in where the yard wasn't sending weaponry to us because they knew we were going to use it on them. So having a razor was like, we had our razor and we had it hooked up ready to go, but they caught us slipping, and that could have been a case that would have kept me in there. You know, I wound up whacking somebody in R&R, a few weeks later, but that's besides the point. Me and him got off. I don't know if he just, I was a little dude. I was probably like 145 pounds at the time. This dude was minimum 6 feet tall, easily 230, 240. And when I'm firing on him, he's running backwards. And he's telling me, get out, just get out. And that's, this isn't about that. It's just another story, another glimpse into the treacherousness of the staff at Tehachapi and CDC as a whole. They knew who my Sally was. They knew my Sally was up for validation. And they set me up and put me on the mixed yard, knowing I was going to go out there and get off. I think they were surprised that I didn't have a weapon on me at the time. The next time they let me out, I did. I stayed at that point. I stayed with one in my mouth. My mouth, cut up all the time. I didn't give a fuck. I was like, they got a freebie. And I know there's people watching. They're going to be like, but if you knew that he got done dirty, you're applying the logic of the streets to an illogical world. Prison is its own society with its own rules, and those rules a lot of time are very fluid, right? But to me, there was no way they were going to call yard recall and I was going to walk off that yard, let them cuff me up. Then I would have got smashed on. I don't know what happened to Bones later. I heard he went to High Desert and got whacked. I guess he decided to try to clean it up later, but I mean, after all that time, and I know I had brushed him, and I think he had gotten moved on a few other times, but remember, his problem all started with him using the N-word. I don't know how much physical harm was done to him, but I know there was several attempts on him. Unfortunately, or fortunately, mine was one that was less lethal, but still, anytime you engage with anybody in there, you get engaged with, the cops can smoke you. So there's another Tehachapi story for you guys. I really don't want to tell any more of the model ones because I probably have one I could tell on that. Him and his circle of dummies. But I mean, hey, you guys keep asking for these prison stories. And it's funny because I think there's some people that maybe are new to the channel and they're like, why do you keep telling prison stories? Or they tell me, you're never going to get out of prison. And I'm like, shit, I'm doing what you guys are asking me for. But there you go, man. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out.